You feel like everyone your age is already ahead of you. They have the job, the money, the relationship, and you're still figuring out the basics. But here is the strange part. Almost nobody says out loud. The race you think you are losing was never actually announced. No one set the rules. No one drew the finish line. For the next few minutes, I want to take that feeling apart with you, piece by piece. And I think by the end, the comparison that has been quietly draining you will lose most of its grip, not by working harder, but by seeing clearly that something you have been afraid of was never really there. Start with that word, behind. To be behind, there has to be a schedule you are behind on, and somewhere in your mind there is one. Degree by 22, a real career by 25, a house, a partner, a plan by 30. It all sounds structured. But here is the thing. You did not write that timeline. You inherited it from external sources, due to overexposure to someone else's life stages, be it from your parents, your teachers, and thousands of social media posts. The algorithm fed you on a daily basis. It slipped in quietly. And then it started keeping score. Once that schedule lives in your head, every ordinary day becomes a test you are passing or failing. You need to snap out of it and take a moment to see where you are currently in life. Find the gap between the schedule and your current situation. This gap will constantly yell at you. It will say, you're not enough. And it will always haunt you every single day to remind you that you are behind the schedule. But before you listen to the gap's voice, ask yourself this one question. Do I really want to live by someone else's schedule? Just remember that every single person in this planet is unique, and we all have different paths to live our life to the fullest. Look closely at what your social media feed actually shows you. It will only show you all the winners living their best moment on their best day. It never shows the years of quiet, nothing in between. It never shows struggle, an ordinary life that people have. So you end up comparing your full, unedited life to other people's highlight. You're behind the scenes against their movie. You feel like the side character to their story, and you are timing that unfair race with a stopwatch that was never yours. Think about two people who reached the same place 20 years apart. One at 25, one at 45. Which one is on time? The question barely makes sense, since there is no universal clock keeping score for either of them. There never was one. You just assumed there had to be, and that single assumption is doing almost all of the damage. If something is already starting to make sense, bear with me, because the next thing is where it actually opens your mind. To understand why, you need to get to know a French philosopher named Albert Camus. He spent his whole life circling on this one idea on humanity. According to him, humans are creatures that are hungry for meaning, and we happen to live in a universe that stays silent to this longing. We always demand life to have an order, a purpose, or a correct sequence of events. Yet the universe stays silent. It doesn't care at all. Camus called the gap between our demands and that silence the absurd. Not absurd like something funny, but absurd like shouting a question into a wall and hearing no feedback from it. Now let's revisit your fear of being behind. It lives exactly inside that gap. You are demanding that the universe set you up with an ideal schedule. Life is different from paying a scheduled monthly subscription, because your worth is not due by any certain date. The deadline you are panicking about was never issued by anyone but yourself. Camus had a strange answer to all of this. He pointed to the myth of Sisyphus, a man condemned by the Greek gods to push a boulder up a hill in an eternal loop. Every time he nears the top of the hill, the boulder would roll back all the way to the bottom. There is no finish line, no final achievement, no destination, ever. If that sounds like a nightmare, notice how much parallels modern human life. The promotion, the next goal, the next milestone, the next thing to buy. It will never be enough. And then the boulder you've been pushing moves back to the bottom. But Camus came up with a line that turns the whole thing over. The struggle itself towards the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Sisyphus accepts that there is no grander meaning beyond his immediate reality. Thus, he's liberated. He knows his task is futile, yet chooses to do it anyway. He becomes superior to his punishment. His awareness transforms his torture into a personal victory. So, now take a deep breath and keep in mind that you're not behind. Truth is, you never were, because there's no finish line to race towards. I know it's scary to let go of the ideal schedule. It feels like losing your direction in life. But that schedule was just a cage you built for your own anxiety to live in. Once you tear it down, that worry has nowhere to hang on. The real question to be asked is, are you living your life, or are you chasing someone else's? Tomorrow morning, that old pressure might try to crawl back in, and you can just let it be. But remember what it's comparing you to. A race that doesn't exist. You can walk off that track whenever you want. You can't lose if you're not even in the race. If this gave you even a little room to breathe, that is exactly what this channel is for. Subscribe so the next video like this finds its way to you.